Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Starseed Immersion podcast. Today, I have Adrienne Rivera, and I'm so excited. Adrienne is the founder of Breathwork of Gold, which is most known for its trauma-informed breathwork facilitator program. She has curated one of the top trauma-informed breathwork certification training programs in the world that features guest lectures from a doctor, neuroscience expert, lawyer, therapist, paramedic, and more. And I'm so excited to bring this healing work to you guys today because I know how powerful breathwork is. But thank you so much for being here and welcome, Adrienne.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Nikki. I'm looking forward to this.
I would love to hear a little bit more about your story and your journey. Like, how did you get into breathwork, or like a little bit about your origin and how you got into breathwork?
Yeah, so like all good things, they tend to find us when we're not looking for them, when we're open-minded and curious and just kind of at the right place at the right time. And that's how it was for me finding breath work. I used to live in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and I randomly saw a flyer for an event and I went and I had no idea what to expect. It was a circular connected breathwork journey. And within no time, I had tears streaming down my face, and I was really amazed by the profound nature of the breath. And what was fascinating to me was that it wasn't tears of sadness, that first journey. It was actually tears of pleasure and euphoria. And I heard the message, everything you're looking for lies within your breath. And that was really profound for me at that time because I did have a habit of looking outside of myself for things, turning to food for pleasure and comfort, turning to a man to try to fill a void, and, really just looking outside of myself. And I feel like that is so easy to do in today's day and age, especially with social media, technology, always being bombarded with media. It becomes very easy to think that we're gonna find the answers outside of us, which is why I love breathwork because we find the answers within us. So for me, as a breathwork facilitator and breathwork trainer at our school, Breath of Gold, we get to really empower everyone to know that you don't have to have everything healed. You don't have to have everything figured out. You can empower your client to have their own wisdom, their own answers. And I find that that is really key, and people tend to have deeper transformations when it comes in their timing. Sometimes coaches, mentors, psychics, people will say, this is something for you. And if the person isn't ready to hear it, they will not take action. It's almost like a mom telling someone like, "Hey, don't eat the candy." Okay, she's gonna eat the candy, especially says you because you said not to, right? So I think there's really a lot of magic to holding space, creating community containers, especially with breath work, to guide people back to themselves, especially in a day and age where there's more and more media. We're always listening to something, and many times it's challenging to be alone. I know for myself, it was really challenging to meditate. My idea of meditation was you have to be quiet and sit in a room and say nothing and do nothing and just clear your mind. I have learned that that is not the way to meditate. You can really do a lot. Meditation can be active, but I really love breath work because it activates the body in a whole new way where you're feeling a lot. A lot is happening. And with circular connected breath in particular, you often have visions, you see things, you can have these out of body experiences. Some people compare it to a plant medicine journey like ayahuasca or mushrooms. And while that could be similar in terms of having realizations, or I would say the biggest similarity would be in seeing things. So many times people imagine in meditations, but you can visualize so much more. And it's almost like you feel that it's happening in your body with that style of breath work. And I love it so much because it's your own medicine, it's your own breath, it's safe, it's easy to access, it's with you at all times, and it will give you exactly what you need. So sometimes you get all the visions and the spiritual downloads, other times it's more emotional and you cry it out, other times your body is tingly and shifting what it's, ready to release. And yeah, it really just gives you exactly what you're needing. And so it is your own medicine. I do believe that we are born with everything we need inside of us. And looking back, something that I find fascinating is that I used to want to be a naturopathic doctor because I cared a lot about just, knowing that everything we have is already here. We have everything in nature. And I do feel like breath work is kind of like that. You can change the way that you breathe to give you what you need. So if you need to improve your sleep, there's a breath work for that. If you need to grieve, there's a breath work for that. If you have high blood pressure, there's a breath work for that. So there's lots of different ways we can use the breath. It's very versatile. My favorite is circular connected breath, and that is what I'm currently known for. And that is also the first style of breath work that I found when I had that first experience and had those inner messages come to me.
That is fascinating. I didn't know that like you can have different breathing styles to invoke different states. I guess like states in your body, whether it's rest, whether it's emotional processing or things like that. So with the method that you teach, like is there a is there a specific thing that it does for people?
That's a great question. So, in our breathwork certification, we teach every style of breathwork because we think it's important that everyone has the complete toolbox. We teach all of the ancient pranayama techniques, which is where modern day breathwork came from. And I created something called the breathwork triangle. I think this is a really good visual for people. So if you imagine a triangle right now at the top, that would be your proper breathing, how we breathe most of the time every day. And so that would look like breathing in and out through the nose, breathing slow, about 5 to 6 seconds in on the inhale, about 5 to 6 seconds out on the exhale, using the diaphragm and belly. So it should be calm, it should be restful. Most of the time, we should be not anxious, we should be restful and recovering. And so that's important because a lot of times people may be mouth breathing and not even know it. They may be breathing too quickly throughout the day, especially when we're glued to a computer. That happens a lot. Like even for myself, I'm on the computer a lot. So I notice that my breathing is not as great than when I'm in nature, things like that. So being aware of how to breathe consciously all the time is important because if we only did my favorite style of breath work, then we could have a lot of other problems that we're not really addressing when it comes to the breath. So I like to think of this triangle as finding balance, giving you what you need when you need it. So great times to check in with your breath are in the morning. You can count yourself in for 5 counts and then count out for 5 counts, following your inhales and exhales through the nose. And that is a great way to just start your day. Then at the bottom left-hand corner, we've got down-regulating breath work, which calms the body. Great for sleep, lowering blood pressure, feeling more calm, lowering anxiety. And my favorite technique for that is an inhale for 4, exhale for 8. It's also called 2x breathing. We're doubling the length of the exhale. It's pretty easy. That's my favorite. That's the one I'll give you. But what to know is that when you breathe through your nose and when you focus on the exhale, everything calms down and you activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And the way that I teach my students in the breathwork certification school that I have is P for pleasure, parasympathetic nervous system. That's the one that feels calming. And when you think about being on a beach and you're relaxing, you take a long sigh. Right? It feels so good to put your feet in the sand. And that is your reminder of like, okay, long exhale, calming the body. The thing about the sighing is that it also stimulates the vagus nerve, which makes you even more relaxed. So there's a lot of science that comes into, wow, the breath really does change this for you. I've had people come to me with high blood pressure and say, I've gotten off my medication, or they've played around with this at the doctor's office, and their doctor is like amazed at how low their heart rate is and how everything can just lower. And the best time to do 4-8 breathing, in my opinion, is right before bed. Just doing it for a few minutes gets you into that calm state. Of course, we got to look at it at a holistic perspective. Someone asked me, they're like, I struggle with sleep. How do I sleep better? And, I gave them 4-8 breathing. But then later I found out that this person is scrolling in bed on their phone for an hour. I'm like, well, let's address that first, like get rid of that. That'll help you even more than the breath. Right? Your brain is all activated from the blue lights, etc., and all the dopamine and all the scrolling and whatever came through. And I'm sure you probably teach your clients this too, but like what state you're in before bed is kind of what you're solidifying into your consciousness. So then we get to, last but not least, my favorite circular connected breath on the other side of the triangle. That is where we have these deep spiritual embodied experiences with breath work. That's where we cry, we have euphoria, we have visions, all the stuff. And the main benefits would be spiritual connection, releasing trauma, processing unprocessed emotions, and gaining clarity. So it is more of that spiritual type of breath work. However, it is more activating, upregulating for our nervous system. So we don't need to do it all the time. Once a week is my preferred cadence. People can do it even, quarterly, whenever it calls to them. You could do it a few days, like when I do my deep dive intensive retreats in person. We do about 3 breathwork sessions to really go deep, and each one tends to build upon the other. And yeah, a lot of people use it for grief because that can be a huge spiritual awakening for so many people. I know it has been a catalyst for myself, and it just allows you to connect so easily when you love someone so much and they're no longer here to feel the emotions, to feel their messages. It changes you on a cellular level, and the grieving ones for myself have been the most impactful sessions I've ever had.
Can you, well, I've done breath work before and I do resonate with a lot of what you say. It almost like you go into an altered state because of how much like oxygen you're taking in or how much you're just regulating yourself and putting yourself in this altered state with your breath. So I've noticed like the whole like tingling that you've mentioned.
Yes.
Also almost like because we're focused on breathing, like there's stuff going on in the head too. And like I'm curious um why, and this was one of the questions I've had for a long time, like what's the difference between like a body-based modality which versus like some other kind of a modality? Like
Mm.
why would someone choose breath work and why is that more effective than perhaps choosing like a different modality?
Yes. So psychologists call this like top down versus bottom up approach. Top down means your head is top, bottom is your body. So that is like going to a therapist, going to a life coach, and it's a lot about analyzing things. Why am I the way that I am? And that can bring a lot of clarity. I know I've had a lot of coaches in my life, and I'm very grateful for them. But I mentioned earlier, sometimes your coach tells you something, and if you're not ready for it, you're going to be paying them but not taking the advice. And so it is more powerful when it comes from you and it feels like this soul-led calling. And yeah, so this breath work is a somatic tool, which means it comes through the body. Soma means body. And yeah, it's a bottom-up approach. So it's all about looking into the subconscious and knowing that whatever the subconscious wants to show you, it will show you. So many times we like to set an intention, which kind of looks like almost like a mini therapy before, where you're just kind of like talking about, okay, this is where I'm at in my life. This is what I want clarity on. This is what I'm ready to release. And that just kind of gets you in the state of, okay, I'm about to go into a process and here I am reflecting on my life. And many times you will get that intention. But the key is to surrender attachment to that intention and know that whatever is meant to come through will come through. And sometimes the subconscious really takes over. I had a client recently who said that, like, wow, I set my intention and I got a little bit of that in the beginning, but then the subconscious just took me exactly where I needed to. And many times it takes you back to childhood. Our developmental years, ages 0 through 8, are where a lot of um, our habits, our beliefs are kind of formed. Now, this is what I've learned in my psychology degree at Virginia Tech. And I do think it's very true. Like when we look at our caregivers or whoever we were around in our young years, we will see similarities even if we don't spend time with them later on in life. It's pretty fascinating, the little small things that we take on from our environment. However, there's always going to be new shifts that come into life. So that's why I believe it's so important to have breathwork as a tool, as a skill set, as a way to help others in our life that we care about. During COVID, I was so blessed that I got to introduce my mom, my dad, my sister to breath work. At that point, before then, they didn't really have a huge need to do breath work. But during that time, with a lot of uncertainty, a lot of change, they were like, okay, I'm coming to your class. I'm ready. And so I do think that It's about knowing that no matter what happens, you'll be able to get through it and you'll be able to handle it because you have a tool to cry it out, to breathe it out, to process it, and to become a new version of yourself.
Mhm. So would you say like because it's the nervous system, it's our nervous system that really holds us back, or it's the subconscious mainly?
Yeah, that's a great, interesting question. There's definitely a lot of layers happening when we think about like what actually holds us back. I do believe things get stuck in the nervous system. There's nervous system patterns, there's holding. There's a great book called The Body Keeps the Score. And that book talks about how when traumas or things in life happen and they're not fully completed or resolved, they can get stuck in the body. And I also believe that they could potentially manifest into physical pain, ailments, things like that. And I have had breath work where I've had old injuries kind of flare up and yes, maybe be more painful, or there was a lot of energy in that area, like an old ankle sprain. And then after that, my body just healed it. And then, whew, I didn't have to deal with that for like years and years and years to come. So there's a lot that's stored in the body, which, your nervous system's kind of like your operating system. I think of subconscious as your beliefs and how you see the world when you're not thinking. Like, for example, one of the things that I used to do was I was a fitness coach. And part of why that was on my path was because I was passionate about fitness and helping women to create a healthy relationship with food. I had overcome 6 years of binge eating. And the example that comes to mind is when you subconsciously end up in the fridge, and you're like, how did I even get here? You go there, right? Without even thinking. So there's a lot of things that we do without even thinking, such as opening your phone and then looking for Instagram. You're like, wait, what is my thumb doing? My husband just deleted Instagram. He's like, yeah, there's been a few times where my thumb's like, wait, oh, it's not here anymore. Okay, great. And yeah, he's got a lot more time now on his hands and he's enjoying that. But yeah, there's a lot of things that affect us in life. One thing that I think is really fascinating is that when we look at people that are currently 50 years old and up, they did not grow up with technologies, and most of the time, their influence came from their parents or their caregivers. And so, this idea of childhood trauma and healing childhood trauma was pretty simple because it's like, oh, you have like three people, maybe, or like 10 people if you had a big family, a lot of siblings. You had a handful of people, let's say, that influenced you. But now when we look at, millennials, Gen Z, Gen X, all that, what is it, Gen Alpha, something like that. There's like the younger ones, like they keep on coming out with these new generations. I can't keep up. I'm technically millennial, so I can speak for myself that we grew up with technology, but later on, like I remember having computers like those huge ones in first grade, but like we didn't do that much on it. But grew up enough to be a really fast typer and like really immersed in technology and be fast at it. So now it's almost more complicated because we see influencers as more important and more influential than our parents. And many people even see this as a problem because they don't necessarily respect their parents as our parents did. Our parents are like, oh, these are my parents. You have to respect them. And in our day and age, it's like, no, you have to earn my respect. A lot of people are like that, especially Gen Z. And I do work with a lot of moms, a lot of parents, which is why I hear this. And so the point that I want to make is that we have trauma that we don't even know about from social media and from things that people are saying that then become our belief systems or comparison or that harm us or that even come from like a little comment that we may get on social media. So this whole other realm really does add a mix to the table. And I kind of believe that it's harder to pinpoint because think about all the posts you've ever seen in your life, all the things you've ever listened to or consumed. It's harder to think about like where did this belief come from? It may not be from your parents anymore. It's likely going to come from an influencer. And in another 10 years from now, it may come from a robot. It may come from AI. Actually, I have a friend who is super into AI. And you know how AI has a way that it likes to talk. I have noticed that this friend talks more like AI now. Like,
Oh,
interesting. Okay. Yeah. It's fascinating because you would think that the AI would talk more like us over time, but no, it's the humans that are now talking more like AI. Fascinating.
I resonate with that because I realize that even in childhood, maybe not having a good role model, I would look to mentors as role models. But over time, it's like shifting one belief system into another belief system. But really, what you are saying is it's all within. So it's about finding our center and not necessarily consuming the ideas and the beliefs of other people, because although they are valid, they might not necessarily be your truth. And I found myself kind of veering off of my truth. It's like, oh, I've done some work, I've done some healing, I kind of know myself. And then this desire for expansion, it's like looking outside for expansion, right? Looking outside to grow. And then taking on so much. Social media is just so easy to access. Coaches are easy to access. And we have all this information. We're just information overloaded. So
Hmm.
it can be overwhelming for the nervous system. It can be so overwhelming to the point that we can't even take action.
Right,
The
right.
analysis
This like
paralysis.
analysis paralysis, this freezing that happens. And I work with a lot of entrepreneurs as well, and I see this happening in their business. They can't make a decision because they have five courses that they're in trying to become experts in five different things and really focus and doing a lot of the old school stuff is what is getting people more ahead. Yeah, it's so fascinating how it works. There's a lot of ways that we can use the tools, but now it's like so readily available that we have to have the willpower to know what are we pouring into? Are we using our spiritual time for AI and ChatGPT, or are we using it for our breath, for our subconscious, for really going within and knowing that we have the answers? I do, of course, love learning and I love audiobooks and podcasts and things like that, but there is an importance for tuning that out enough to really listen within. A great mentor, speaking of mentors, is Julia Cameron. She is an older woman by now, but she has a very famous book called The Artist's Way. And one of her processes that I really believe in is called morning pages. And that's where you write 3 pages every morning and in your journal. And the first page and a half, she says that you're really putting your conscious mind, pen to paper. And then just when you get halfway and you kind of feel like you want to quit, and you're like, I don't have anything else to say. That's really where the subconscious comes through. Some people call this practice automatic writing. There's many different ways to call this practice, but that is another way that we can get into the subconscious as well, where it kind of just comes through for us. I would say the difference between that and breath work is that breath work makes you feel more. So there's a good chance that you will feel the information that's coming through more. You'll be more emotionally activated, which I do believe is part of the reason why we're here to be human, is to feel the depths of our emotion. It is a gift, even when it's challenging, and that is definitely something that breathwork has taught me.
I love that you mentioned the whole feeling aspect, because healing is holistic. Like we have the mind, the subconscious, and then all the other modalities, but part of that is the heart and the feeling, right? And if we're focused too much on the expansion of consciousness, we're not connecting to the body. So with breath work, you can actually connect to the body and release what is stored in the body, or even feel what's processed in the body. And as a prime, it's interesting too, because I'm like, I was studying brain functions actually, and like there's people with their that part of their brain function is, or the way that they perceive the world is through feeling. But like if your dominant brain function is an extroverted function that perceives the outside world first, you tend to forget about the body. So that's exactly me. Like I'm predominantly a thinker, but then
Mm.
my weakness is feeling, but that's my secondary brain function, is the feeling aspect. So I like it was like a lot of trial and error to get to this point. Oh, like I've neglected the feeling part of my journey. Like I've done a lot of the
Mm.
intellectualizing part of the journey, but like what about the feeling part of the journey?
That's the part that makes us human. And for you and anyone who's similar to you listening, I think that that's the perfect person that could really get so much out of breath work, especially circular connected breath, to connect to those emotions. It allows us to grow our muscle of empathy, human connection, and also forgiveness, because as we do breath work, we can see things from this higher self perspective. And so many times I have seen things from this different way from, past boyfriends, from my family, from childhood, things from the past where I felt weird about someone like, oh, this person, that's not a great situation that happened. We've all had those situations. And then you see it from this higher self perspective and you're like, oh, it's okay. Actually, I can have compassion. I can see why this person may have done that. And it's okay. And to have that separation has allowed me to rewrite my childhood completely. I remember being in a leadership academy probably 8 years ago and really crying and struggling and releasing a lot of challenges that had happened in my early years that had really affected me. And if you would have asked me then, oh, has your childhood been hard? I probably would have said yes. But now I've shifted it and rewrote the meaning of the story so many times that I'm like, oh, it was all okay. It's all good. And people listening may think, well, are you just spiritually bypassing? Are you just not giving yourself credit for the challenges that you endured? But no, I think not, because I've definitely given myself the time to cry and process and reshift things. And it has made me a better human because I see people with the lens of compassion. I'm always very understanding. I always see the good in a situation. I see value as coming in many ways rather than just one. And yeah, it really shifts the way that I see life. So doing a lot of breath work has kind of shifted my perspective of reality, how I see people, how I relate to people, how I forgive people, how I have compassion for them. And yeah, it's fascinating. And I think that our quality of life is often tied to how we see the world. That's why two people can be siblings in the same household and one person has deep depression and hates their family, whereas the other sibling, same upbringing, same environment, but different wiring in their brain, different stories and meaning that they're making the experiences. That's why those two siblings can have a completely different outcome in their life. And so the good news is that we can always rewrite it. We can always shift the meaning. And a lot of the past that has power over us is just the meaning we've made it have. So if you can take the hardest things that have ever happened to you and make them into the best blessings and your purpose and why you're here and why you're strong and why you're capable, then the past doesn't have any power over you.
That definitely like resonates in terms of your perception creates your reality. Like, and
Yes.
it really is a self identity or self shifting. And a lot of the times when we have a spiritual awakening or like go through the healing process, we're constantly shedding those layers of what's not true for us anymore. And then coming out the other side with a new perception, new identity, a new way of seeing the world. Right.
Hmm.
Well, I'm interested like in a little bit about your experience when you knew like, okay, you've done enough of your own healing to be able to facilitate healing for other people, or is there no distinction, right? Like,
It's a great question. Yeah. So I don't really fully believe that you need to have done a ton of your own healing as long as you have the ability to be compassionate, the ability to not project, so not thinking that your stuff is the client's stuff, the ability to be non-judgmental. Like these character things could come with a certain amount of healing work that you've done on your own journey or not necessarily, but these things I see as more important as your own healing journey. And I like to tell people that because a lot of people ask me this question, especially when they want to become a certified breathwork facilitator. They think, oh, I'm still doing my deep inner work, like I still have more work to do. And that may be a limiting belief for them. They could really probably actually advance their own healing by holding deep space for others. And I believe that the healing that occurs in a breathwork session is a cycle. When one person heals, you heal. I always transform and I feel slightly changed and new when I hold space for a client in a deep way and they have a big transformation and I feel the effects of that. And sometimes it really leaves me contemplating things in life because I do believe that the universe brings us clients that are mirrors to us. And it's like, okay, this person, what they're going through, which is separate, how do I maybe relate with that? And what lessons could I learn through this person's experience? And that's really where the value comes. And I think that as long as the person knows that healing is a lifelong practice, I've done a lot of work and I haven't had a lot of deep stuff in my breath work recently, but that doesn't mean I'm done. And more of my life is going to happen and more things are going to come up as I grow older and wiser. So, there will be many breath works that I use that are deep, but Well, when I say deep, I mean like emotional and like deep healing. They've been more light and expansive and more connecting to my purpose. And that is something that I see where it's like the first 10 breathwork sessions that you do are usually inner child work. They're a lot deeper, a lot of tears, a lot of just, whew, your body's releasing a whole lot of what it's held on to. And then there does get to be a point where it does get a little bit lighter and you start to see from this different perspective that I am talking about. But by no means am I the perfect person either. We're all human. And yeah, I think that the biggest, most important thing is that we can be compassionate for other people and hold non-judgmental space. Like if someone who hurt you and did something wrong, like if you were to have someone who did that same thing and you were to lead them in breath work, would you be able to be compassionate to them as they're having these things come up and you're like, oh, I used to judge people like that. Can you release that and hold the space in a neutral way? So it's more about holding safe space than doing your own deep work, although both are important. But I like to put the emphasis on the training element of holding deep space because no one will ever feel like they've healed enough. Everyone's always still healing.
Yes, that is so true. And one of the beautiful things I've noticed is you're absolutely spot on with we kind of mirror our clients or like our clients kind of mirror us. And it's almost like a simultaneous thing that happens with healing. Like when we support others in healing, it's like we're healing part of ourselves too.
I totally agree.
And then for yourself, like have you ever had an experience that really reflected that back to you? Like this is
Yes.
like what was the that
Yeah.
one thing that was like this is what I need to teach the world or this is what.
Well, a story that I want to tell that is actually more recent. It happened this year. This breathwork journey was the one that I feel changed me the most out of any breathwork journeys over the years, which is why I want to share it. And this breathwork journey, it's surprising to me that it changed my life so much because it wasn't one that I did. It was one that I facilitated. And so I know someone who has a friend locally near where I live, and they shared with me that something very traumatic had happened to this person. And I didn't know him super well, but basically the story was that he and his wife were pregnant, they had a baby, and in the childbirth, the baby survived, but the wife passed away. She didn't make it, and it was very traumatic for him, for the baby, for everyone in the community. Lots of tears, lots of processing. People are still processing it. And so I had thought about that person for a long time, even though I'd seen that person at one event, so I didn't really know this person, but I thought about them so much until, about 3 months after that had happened, I saw this person at an event. And I felt called to go up to them and say, hey, I feel called to guide you in breath work. If you're open to receiving, I think it might be a beautiful way for you to not only process the grief, but also to spiritually connect to your wife as the angel version of her. Are you open to that? Yes, please. I would love that. I need that support. And so he came over to my house. We did an in-person session. It was so deep. Before the session, I asked, like, what are all the songs that were special to you? So it was like a beautiful playlist with all the songs that they used to love. And we were both in tears even before the session started. And I shared with him, I said, if you see me crying, know that I'm okay. As the energy releases through you, it also passes through me. So know that feeling is a good thing. Holding emotions is what we want to avoid. So if you hear me sniffling, we're good. Keep going. This is for you to fully feel and release. And that session, of course, I was crying, he was releasing so much. And towards the end, sure enough, he saw her at the end. And this was pretty profound because he was someone who didn't have much of a spiritual belief before, like very science-based perspective on life and reality. And yeah, he saw her, he heard messages. The message was, there's more. There's more in life, there's more in everything. And there was a lot of synchronicities that just really came through, and he felt more complete knowing that she's okay, knowing that she believes in him, she trusts him to raise their child. And it was really, really deep. And so, of course, at the end of the session, I do what I always do is, all right, so know that the next few days you might be feeling a little more emotional. Lessons may show up for you. Things may be unfolding as they should. And just take the time to integrate. And what I didn't expect was that I needed to integrate. I went on this full grieving process myself. And, many spiritual mentors that I've had, I almost heard their voice in the back of my head, like, ground the energy of the room afterwards, sage everything, command the energy to be God. But it wasn't like that. It was such deep spiritual energy that it wasn't like I needed to cleanse the space. It's like, oh wow, like I am now able to feel the effects of something this profound without needing to really go through it myself. But what could shift in my belief system if I allowed myself to really go through the depths of my emotion through this? And I am married, so I was, of course, thinking about, my partner and like us and all of that. Yeah, I grieved for a few days. One of the days it was like all about her, his wife, even though I didn't really know her. I had this one Enya song on repeat and I just was honoring her and feeling her messages. And that felt really important in a spiritual way, the honoring, which I don't think is something to override or dismiss or just get too busy with life. And there was a lot that came up for myself personally around loss, around fear of loss, around abandonment, around loneliness. Like all these things were coming up. And yeah, it really, really was the biggest gift, even though it was so hard and so challenging. And there was like 4 days where I was a hot mess. The result of it was that I feel way more in love and appreciative for my husband than ever before. It almost feels like, wow, my husband, like, what if he left? But now he's back. He's back in human form. Like, I can be with him. This is a gift. And so to have that is powerful because I think oftentimes we take our aliveness for granted rather than seeing it as something that could be here today, maybe not tomorrow. And so, really having that for those that we love is important. And it kind of shifted me to realize okay, a lot of those physical things in reality, yes, it's okay to dream. Yes, it's okay to want big things, but none of that really matters. At the end of the day, it's always about your connections, your relationships, people that you love, feeling that you are love, and having memories with those people. So, it was a huge gift to lead that experience. It gave me so many messages, and I'm so grateful. And yeah, to this day, he still shares that that was a gift for him, life-changing session for him. And yeah, it was powerful that it changed not only him, which was my intention, but like I said, I was so surprised. I did not think that it would affect me so deeply, and it was beautiful in the end.
My goodness. And as you speak, I do feel the energy of that come through. Like the way I receive things is I see visions, and it was almost like your path was kind of rooted in the 3D, 4D, but that experience truly connected you to the divine. Like that truly was what divine was. And it was like this feeling of unconditional love.
Yes, I resonate with that.
Well, thank you for sharing that because that is such a beautiful experience and how powerful your work really is and how profound it really impacts other people. So the work you do is amazing.
Thank you. Yes, it is a gift, and it is sometimes challenging to hold deep space. A lot comes up, and that is the beautiful thing. And it also can be a lot for people. So, yeah, it's important that we take care of ourselves, we honor our process. And yeah, it's been a huge gift to be in this type of work.
Would you like to share a little practice with us while you're here, or would you like to invite them to experience that live with you for on Sunday?
Yeah, well, we can do something short and sweet now just to feel the connection of how something simple as heart coherent breathing just makes you feel more in alignment. So it won't be the same deep, profound experience, but I will tell you about how to come to that and give you the full 90-minute experience live with me. And I definitely want anyone here listening to check that out. But yeah, let's try some heart coherent breathing. This gets your heart waves and your brain waves, everything into synchronicity. So if you were to look at, the EKG machine and see your heartbeat, those waves would look about the same in terms of pacing, length, and everything with your heart and your brain. So it really does actually get you into alignment and into synchronicity. What you feel from this, it's a more subtle effect, and you just feel more grounded in who you are. And so what I'll do is I'll guide us through a mini meditation, just a visualization to clear the energy. I'll guide you in by counting you in for 5 counts of an inhale through the nose, 5 counts through of and exhale through the nose. And we'll do that for a few rounds. And this will be a practice that you can do every morning if you want, or whenever you're feeling a little bit off and just wanting to recalibrate, rebalance, and come back into your body. So this is heart coherence. When you're ready, you can close your eyes. If you are seated, notice your sits bones on the chair or the ground beneath you. We're going to take this first moment here to ground by visualizing the base of the spine, placing a gold dot there, right at the base, boop, and then bringing your awareness to the center of the earth, placing another gold dot there, boop, and then connect your grounding cord. So seeing yourself connecting those dots, creating your grounding cord, going from the base of the spine into the center of the earth, noticing if you already feel more grounded, noticing how in your mind's eye your grounding cord looks today. Maybe it looks thick, maybe it looks thin. What's important to know is that you can release energy through the grounding cord. So as you take a moment here, breathing naturally, notice if there's any energy that you would like to release from your energetic field, from your physical body. And take a few moments here to imagine and visualize sending that energy down the grounding cord into the earth to be neutralized. Noticing your natural inhale and exhale through the nose, breathing in the mantra and the affirmation, I now powerfully release any energy that no longer serves me through my grounding cord into the earth to be neutralized. Any energy that you may have taken on from others or social media or anything else from any point, past, present, or future, you now release it from the body, sending it down the grounding cord. And now you get to fill up your own energy by connecting to your gold sun, imagining this gold sun right above the head, feeling the warmth of this golden light as it shines down through the crown of the head, going all the way down the body, past the face, the neck, the chest, the abdomen, the hips, the thighs, the knees, the calves, the ankles, the feet, out through the toes, filling up any spaciousness that you created with your own energy, your own light. Notice any subtle differences that you may feel here. And now we will begin a few rounds of heart coherent breathing. Bring your awareness to your belly breathing, breathing deep and low into the belly, and also using the sides of the abdomen, like you're breathing into an accordion laterally with the ribs. Let's begin all through the nose. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Beautiful work. Staying here with your eyes closed for just a little bit longer. Breathe naturally and notice if you feel a little bit more grounded, a little bit more in alignment, and more connected with your mind and your heart. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. We are complete.
Wow, thank you so much for that experience. I did feel the energy, like I felt the awareness go from here to down here.
Mm, amazing. You're connected to your body. And
I
yay.
am.
I would love to hear the difference of, this small practice versus the main practice for you. And of course, anyone listening, I lead breathwork on Sundays, and the link to join is breathofgold.com/Sunday-breathwork. And the first one is free. If you love it, we have a monthly membership that you can join and have breathwork with me every week. It's a really fun time, a beautiful experience, and that is the more deep dive, spiritual awakening type thing. So if you feel like you may have some inner child work to do, great. If you feel like you want to get more clarity on your purpose, amazing. If you feel like you're just curious, what's in my subconscious? What do I have to release? And you're ready to release some weight, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, this is the session for you. And I'd love to have you there. It's from 5:30 to 7 Pacific Standard Time.
Beautiful. And I will have Adrienne's link right below in the description. And Adrienne, if they're interested in your website, what is your website?
Yes, it's breathofgold.com. There you can check out other offerings that we have. We have a nervous system breathwork course. Our most popular thing is our trauma-informed breathwork certification. And we also recently created a breathwork for kids certification. And that is for parents and moms that are looking to better support their kids and having holistic wellness practices to feel more calm, more focused in school, and build confidence in who they are. So lots of fun things there. Would love to hear from you on Instagram. Feel free to send me a voice note at Adrienne Rivera Coaching, and I would love to connect with you if you have any questions or want to receive some breath work.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Adrienne, for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you in the next podcast episode. Bye for now.
Bye.